Hey, Warrior Saints, good morning. Welcome to Tuesday's episode of our Crucifixional live stream. Glad to have you beautiful people in. As far as the book goes, remember, warriorsaints.org. You can get the book there, The Way of the Warrior Saint. And in this, we're going to learn how to find the ways to be comfortable being uncomfortable, to do the hard things in life. If it's easy, it's wrong. Usually, when things are really easy, it's because they're not the right things to do. Doing the right thing is often, most often, a challenge. And in this book, we expose what that means and how to accomplish, according to God's plan, all of the hard things in life. Today, as we continue the Warrior Saints Challenge, we're going to talk a little bit about chapter 26, Control on a Team. Now, the title is Control on a Team, and it follows a previous chapter, Control, which talks about how to take control in your life. I like this chapter. I'm going to talk about it today because it helps show us if we are in an environment where we work with other people, how do we take control of things, but not be a control freak where we're micromanaging everything. So I loved chapter 26. It helped me in my own ministry with my own team. We're going to diverge from control a little bit today. It's the impetus, and we thank our friend Wendy, our fellow warrior saint, for bringing it up because she said to us, look, I started the chapter and I disagreed with you because, I have to have control and set boundaries for crazy people in my work environment. And I thought, well, Wendy, that's true. Let's talk about it. And as I was reflecting on her thoughts and really probably her struggles, which I'm sure we've all had to deal with, I thought about Jericho. And you might say, why do you think about Jericho, Father Chris? What's going on in Jericho? In Joshua, the book of Joshua, chapter 6, so the way the Old Testament is laid out for us is the first 5 books are called the law, the Torah, Torah, Torah. It means in Hebrew, the law. Genesis, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The lion's share of the story from the middle of Exodus all the way through Deuteronomy is Moses leading the people in the wilderness, right? Or God leading the people, but through his servant Moses in the wilderness. And the very next book is Joshua, who actually takes the people into the land. Moses doesn't take the people into the promised land. He keeps them in the wilderness for a while, and then he dies outside the land because of his sin. So Joshua takes them in. So the 6th book in the Old Testament is Joshua. And there comes a story in chapter 6 where they come upon a city of Jericho. And in the story, God wants them to sack the city. He's going to clean out the promised land and get rid of all of these crazy people around so that he can give his people that he led through the wilderness a beautiful new land, the land flowing with milk and honey, right? We remember this. And in the story, they are to walk around the city of Jericho every day, like all of the people of Israel to circle the city every day for 6 days in a row. On the 7th day, they go around the city 7 times and they blow the trumpets, which is an indicator for the start of war. And then they shout and God will give them the city. And we hear the following in Joshua chapter 6. So the people shouted, and the trumpets were blown. As soon as the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the people raised a great shout, and the wall fell down flat. So again, you know why the wall is there. I mean, like if any of you watched any like ancient type of setting in a movie or a TV show, Game of Thrones or in Viking shows, there's always a wall, right? Like you have the wall around the city, and it is to protect from foreign invaders, right? In other words, if we're building a city, one of the king's first responsibilities is to protect his people, protect those who live in the city. We'll do that by building a wall because let's keep the bad guys out. So if the wall, you know this, right? If the wall is breached, trouble, because the enemies can get in and do their nefarious deeds, which is what happens in Jericho. Listen to the rest of the verse. And the wall fell down flat so that the people went into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city, right? So now that the walls were there, they couldn't keep God's people out of Jericho. Jericho was exposed. And here's what happens. Then they utterly destroyed all in the city, both men and women, young and old, oxen and sheep and asses with the edge of the sword. So the walls came down, the boundary to protect the bad guys from the good guys, in this case, keeping God's people out of the city, was gone. And God's people could go in and sack the city. What if you were the city? What if you and I in our own lives are a city trying to accomplish the things that God has set us to do, the tasks that he wants us to do, the contribution to the world that he wants us to make. And we got no walls to keep the bad guys out, right? You ever feel like that? You ever feel like you're overwhelmed where, oh my gosh, number one, there's a gazillion things to do and I can't do them all. But I just keep taking them on. And the other, like we go back to our friend Wendy, where other people are trying to infiltrate, or like other foreign invaders are trying to manipulate our work environment, our home life, our relationships, our friendships, our health, whatever it may be. I mean, I'm sure that every single one of you has felt that and knows that and probably feels that daily. And I think that is a product of not having boundaries. We got to set walls in our own life. And I don't mean walls in relationship to keep us away from people. What I mean is that we have to be able to take control of each and everything that we do so that we can accomplish what we're supposed to accomplish and not have, again, see the metaphor I'm drawing, all of the people of Israel come running in and utterly destroying all the cattle and oxen and sheep and asses and everybody else, right? The point is that we have to have boundaries in our life. I'm going to tell you a real story that just happened this morning. And we have a dear friend from our Warrior Saints team has a dear friend in Kentucky, Charles. And he's so great, so kind. He said, hey, the book is awesome. Do you have a study guide to go with it? And it was immediately, I was like, ooh, that's a good idea. It made me also think about a dear friend of ours in Wisconsin, Stacy, who mentioned something similar a few months ago, like, put a study guide together, do a virtual retreat and this kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, Greg, I was talking to Greg, let's do it. And then I thought, I don't have time. Who are you kidding, Father Chris? I got no time to do that. Like, my inclination, because it's a great idea, was to do it. But I just don't have time to do it at all, let alone effectively or to do it well, to do good work on it, because we're working on other things, right? And so I had to fight that temptation and put up a boundary and say, and Greg and I said, like, I just do it. I mean, it's great. I'm not questioning it. My temptation is to jump in, but at least for the time being, because we just can't. Over the first task, which is to say, there are things that are going to try to creep in all the time to take you off of your main task. Really, you know what else is there? Like the simplest one, email, right? Email, it just keeps chiming and chiming and chiming. If you ever notice that, like, as we're filming in the library and I kind of look down to the right, my computer's here running everything, connecting me to Greg and all that kind of stuff. And anytime a number pops, the red circle 1 or 2, the emails are coming in, and I'm like, I'm looking down because it's there's got to be a wall, a boundary there, so that email is handled at certain times, not when email comes in. Do you follow? Like, I'm rambling about it at this point. You can see that if we don't establish boundaries, superfluous things, even sometimes good things that will distract us from our main task, will creep in and destroy the city of our lives. And likewise, we also have to make sure that we have boundaries with people that are, nefarious is maybe a too strong a word, but are trying to, like, especially in the work environment, people who want to sabotage things, or in their great love for the business or the job that you work in and wanting to succeed, they're willing just to push. Boundaries that have to be set there as well in order to say, look, we can't do this, or this is not your place to do that, and so on. So if you don't do that and you know it, you absolutely know it, it can cause strife in the workplace. It can also cause failure on whatever project or task you're working on. Both of these types of infiltrations require the warrior saint to be able to say no. I mean, it is so important to be able to say no. It's hard to say no, but you have to say no, because if you say, it's as if you say yes to everything, to quote a beautiful book, Essentialism. There's a great book, Essentialism, written by a guy named Greg McKeon. He says, if you say yes to everything, you will be making a millimeter of progress in a million different directions, which is ultimately to say you're making no progress, right? I mean, you can't say yes to everything and be effective. And so the art of learning how to say no is important. And that leads me to an important pitch. I have a whole chapter in here called Saying No. I mean, it's so important that it got its own chapter, which will help us establish our boundaries. We also have in the library multiple lessons, multiple video lessons about how to say no, tools to use, things to implement, so that we can take control and establish the boundaries in our lives so that we can put forth and bring forth as much fruit as possible. So I encourage you, as we always do, join us at warriorsaints.org and subscribe for the library. It's a fun thing coming. We've got, as we said, a bunch of classes on how to say no and how to establish boundaries and get yourself square. We're also coming up with a new one. The one we just put, Greg, we call the Durden Burden. Tyler Durden. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but it's awesome. We have a new one coming up that we're working on this week, which is about how do you have respectfully a conversation with someone or shut down a conversation with someone when they start to get feisty. For example, we all know this one. The vaccine is a hot topic. Are you going to take it? I'm not going to take it. You're not going to take it? You're going to take it? I'm going to take it. I'm not going to take it. What's going on here? What's the matter with you? Don't you know you should take it? No, you shouldn't take it. All that kind of stuff. How do you deal with it when someone asks you something personal and tries to infiltrate your mind with these probing questions, but yet you love them and want to respond with gentility and grace? How do you do that? Well, we're going to film a class on that. We'd love for you to subscribe and join us. warriorsaints.org. Love you guys. It's a fun one today. Look, just to recap it, bring it all back around. Establish those boundaries. It's hard. Saying no is uncomfortable, but I promise you, when you do it with frequency, like all things, you start to get better over time with the ability to say no. And it's not that you are rude. It's that you are just trying to keep the city of your life safe so that you can offer as much good fruit as you can back to God and to the world. Great stuff. We will be back with you tomorrow for our Wednesday episode. Until then, as always, keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.